way for people who have parked, or people who are staying in hotels, people who want to get to the shops? Any ways of dealing with getting people across?
The
traffic, A and B traffic noise.
Yeah.
Vibration.
Okay. Well, for crossing, there really only be two areas that you have to worry about crossing the road, which would be here and here. And what I kind of figured was maybe there could be some form of like maybe a speed limit change, or that drops it down drastically, because it's like 50, 55 right now, and drop it down to maybe 30. Or maybe on the outside of both have like a crosswalk with a stop sign or something. And like the idea of this is, it's not that trucks or larger vehicles couldn't maneuver through there. It's just that maybe, you know, with all the people that would be around and the slower traffic, would kind of encourage them to seek a different way around and kind of.
Consider taking the traffic around that semicircle.
Oh yeah, I mean, that could be an option.
Instead of running in through it.
Yeah, you could do that too. That would just it would extend this. It would just make all this then pedestrian and in the middle. If that could also be done. Yeah.
Thank you, Chuck. And next, someone with a name I can pronounce easily. That's Mike Lee, and his plan is Fertile Crescent. Thank you, Sam. All that schooling has paid off.
Hello. Okay, so my design is right here. So suburban sprawl is something that cripples culture and really weakens economy. And today, typical growth is characterized by, unfortunately, suburban sprawl. And the question is, can modern times learn from ancient lessons? So sustainable growth occurs in areas that are rich and abundant in resources. And 7,000 years ago, the ancient Mesopotamians discovered that settling between the areas of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers yielded benefits that catalyzed growth. And the rivers would flood, providing nutrients for crops. The waterways themselves would serve as transportation for people and goods. And the civilization thrived. So what is the problem we have here? I think the problem we really have is that our understanding of what growth is has been skewed over time. William McDonough once said that growth doesn't have to sprawl. It can be an intensification of value. And I think that's a very strong statement. And so if we shift our perception and approach the issue conceptually, we might be able to come up with a real beneficial intervention. And the area between Shelburne and South Burlington is not unlike that ancient river valley. Instead of waterways, we have a vehicular highway. And instead of crops for sustenance, we have economics and culture. And basically, for an area to thrive, it has to be true to that identity and use what it has. And the intent for this design is not simply to solve the problem. The real answer lies in providing a stage for the problem to solve itself. And so the design is really about program and synergy. It's about the competition between the through traveler and the pedestrian and how they interact. Right now, the condition is that they kind of compete with each other, and the area is not settled. You know, it suffers from it. And the intervention is basically to create a public parkway, extrude it, and infill with constructed space. This would separate the two programs, enriching both of them, both functionally and aesthetically, I think. But it does this without limiting them and creating a visual dialogue between the two. So it simultaneously is a wall between the pedestrian and the through trafficker, but is also a stage for them to meet and to experience one another. And so the infill would be multi-use. Here, the program I have up here is the bottom level will be commercial, second level offices and studios, and the third level affordable housing in the form of apartments and studio apartments, things like that. And so the idea is basically to constrict development to Route 7, to tighten it, and to really express the idea that the area is dependent on Route 7, and we can work with that. And the important thing to think about with this is that, you know, it may not be so practical, it might be very far in the future, but the intent for this design is to shift our way of thinking about how we view growth. And that's really what I want to get at with this. Okay. Materials. I envision a skeleton of concrete and steel. It's easy to prefabricate, so I think that if we start off with a node in the band of buildings, create a warehouse, a stage to create these prefabricated elements, then the area becomes an organism and depends on itself for growth. So you can go as fast or as slow as you want to if you have that one node as a warehouse to prefabricate the rest of the band. So a concrete skeleton underneath and prefabricated, obviously, skin that goes on the top. So you can do, you know, whatever you want with the outside. Business owners can have their own facades, and people can customize their houses. In the space between it, they can have, you know, a vertical garden if they want to, or they can have a porch, or different things. I think my rendering over here kind of shows for itself where I want to resource the materials. You know, I've got Allen lumber up there to kind of give some local incentive there, and the restore. I believe in the restore because it takes materials that people don't need anymore and it gives them to people that really do need them. And although it's on a really micro scale, I think that could really benefit, the idea of that can really benefit the area here. So taking local resources, obviously, something we all share, the idea, but really pushing that to the next level, becoming an organism that is involving different businesses to be interlinked and to grow into a panoramic form. So it's really intimate, but it also has a knowledge of if we work together, we can create a moment that's good for everyone.
Can you describe kind of the grade on the bottom of the poster there, the one that runs vertically? Yeah.
This one? Or where are we going?
Yeah. Up. No. There.
The grade?
Where's the road? What exists at different grades and where the roadway is?
Okay, yeah. The Route 7 is right here.
Okay.
The median is maintained. I also put in an elevated rail right there, a maglev system, which is probably way far into the future, but it's just a suggestion.
No, we need it now. What is it?
An elevated rail, magnetic levitation railway. It uses just electricity and there's no friction, and it's, I don't know, it's really cool. But you want me to explain the program through the section here?
Exactly.
Okay, so we have our storefront here, which is located in close proximity to the road. There's a median in the walkway itself, a bike lane on this side, and a pedestrian walkway on the store side. And this would all be storefronts and cafes and businesses, things like that, on the first two floors. And the third floor is going to be residences who are actually these little nodes right here. Okay, so these are, I don't know, maybe prime residential spots that face the road with their own garden up top. And so if we move through the section here, in this section, there's a public space in the middle right here that creates kind of a plaza, a moment for people to see and be seen, but also a place for the stores to kind of get relief. There's also a rainwater retention pond right here, so I don't want to be insensitive to the actual climate. And if we move through the section some more, we have, again, businesses and offices on the first two floors, residences on the second floor, and the parkway up top, back of house traffic for shipping and trucks for businesses and things, storage in the back. And this section is through this area right here. And there's an area suggestive of an amphitheater, public amphitheater, which is just a stage for things to happen, really. And just infilling again on the other side.
And the tower?
The tower, oh yes. the tower is in an effort to get the through trafficker to become a pedestrian. We want to convert these people into someone who's going to stay and have a good time. But we don't want to do it with giving the car the power. We want to give the pedestrian priority over the through trafficker. And so these towers are like automobile garages, but it's robotic and it's futuristic, and you just bring your car in there and you put them in timeout. And you just park them in these nodes, and you get out and you experience a space more intimately. You know, you're not desensitized by the vehicle. So you're required to experience a space on foot, to smell it, to breathe it in, and it gives power back to the pedestrian without limiting the flow of traffic through the area.
And does it go from South Burlington all the way down to Webster Road? I can't quite tell from that far right-hand map.
Yeah, it pretty much extends the entire length of the site. It goes right from the border of South Burlington all the way to, I don't know what the hill is, but there's a hill on right above where the bridge is, right north of where the bridge is. And I want to use that hill as kind of a public viewing spot. It's not to be controlled, it's just to terminate into the hill and let the people do as they may. I think it could be a nice space.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
So I think that concludes the presentations. Grace is not presenting tonight, if I have that correctly. So the next spot on the agenda is the identification of the People's Choice. The People's Choice vote was just an attempt to involve people in the community and invite them in and to have them look at the plans and cast a vote. And the process was not perfect. I'm the first one to admit that. We didn't have an accounting firm of We Can Count Them or anything like that. But I'm pleased to announce that there was a tie, and the two plans that were identified as the People's Choice include one that you have just heard from, and that's Mike's Fertile Crescent. So maybe we could give Mike a hand for being identified as one of the People's Choice. And the second winner of the People's Choice designation is Rebecca Jones, whose plan is integrating agriculture, which is the one that we snuck up here just before people came in. And I don't know, Rebecca, would you want to say a little bit about your plan? Not to put you on the spot, but maybe to just give you the opportunity. Yeah, that's right. I'll explain that the students were expected to come up on Monday to just bring their plans and post them, and we just took advantage of the fact that they were here and made them give presentations to the jury. They didn't have any time to prepare, and they did a great job, and we're grateful for it. It made it a lot easier. But anyway, Rebecca.
Thank you. My name is Rebecca Jones. My project is about integrating agriculture into Shelburne. If you'll excuse my voice, I'm a little bit sick. It might go. So I was trying to relate to Dolan Farms, something that a lot of you probably know about, drive past every day. And when I came to visit Shelburne, I noticed it not only on the Google Maps that we were given from the beginning, that there was this farm over here, but I drove into the driveway and tried not to go past the no trespassing signs. And I was very interested. I'm an agricultural person myself. With my family, I have 2 horses, neighbors with cattle and the like. So this was very personal to me. So I wanted to take this space and make it public, which I'm not sure how the owners particularly feel about it, but I've heard from a few of them, and we'll see what happens. So I wanted to make it a place where people could come in Shelburne and see some history. Like, Vermont is a very agricultural place, so a place where people could, whether they drive through on this road or whether they come and maybe spend the day just looking at the animals, maybe being a part of that process. Of feeding or petting or just being around the animals and being in a farm environment, which a lot of people don't get to experience in their lifetime very often. I also wanted to expand the farm, maybe add different sorts of livestock, maybe hogs, chickens, anything really, and maybe expand on some tree farms, a pine farm and an apple orchard, maybe being able to get the public involved in like the Christmas